And for anyone who's new, these monthly calls, just opportunity to check in and see what's there, to have an opportunity to speak and reflect and see if there are any questions and anything that we want to discuss. I usually don't prepare anything for these calls. It's nice just to see what arises, and this afternoon I really have no idea where to go, what to do, what the topic is, which is nice. So I'm very open to questions. If anybody wants to ask a question at some point or put it in the chat, we can go in that direction as well. But for now, with all of us here, it's really wonderful just to slow down a little. We can just slow down a bit together. If you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. If you want to catch up with your breathing, become aware of where you are. Become aware of how you are. One of the quickest ways to become aware like this is just to listen. To listen in a way that we're not looking for an object of listening, not looking for a sound, but the very listening itself. First of all, when we take a moment to stop and listen, we find that we hear more than we heard before. We hear what we weren't hearing before. And more acutely, when we listen precisely, there's no thought in the mind. In the act of listening, there's no thought. And I'd also go to say that there's no thinker of the thought. So take a moment to let your mind settle into this quality of listening, which means wherever you are in the world, whether it's the morning or the evening, let your mind come to be here. Let this listening come to be here. We notice when we take a moment to stop and listen that we are naturally present. There's a natural presence. We could say that this natural presence, it is uncaused. It's a really subtle thing. In many of the different paths that we walk and try out, we use methods and techniques and practices in order to get somewhere or attain something or achieve something. We use methods and practices we do the practice. But if we just take a moment to listen and recognize the presence that comes online with listening, it's not really an act of doing, but the end of doing. It's a letting go of a type of practice, a letting go of any kind of technique or method to want to get somewhere or do something with something. Many of us here are used to methods and techniques and practices. Notice here that listening and presence, there's no method. saying that there's no method. It's a relinquishing of a sense of doing something. And relinquishing the sense of doing something means that we rest in and recognize the being, the beingness, the quality of being that is already present. Now, it's a very subtle thing, this shift from performing a practice or a method or a technique to just letting things rest, letting things be. And it's very subtle for some of us that we usually need a lot of kind of advice, a kind of a practice, something to do with our mind, something to do with our body, in order to feel like we are transforming something and getting somewhere, and something is taking a new direction, the flowers blossoming in a new way. But the real aspect of what a lot of the paths are talking about is this natural, effortless blooming and blossoming. And if we're always looking externally to the practice or the way that it looks, we miss what is looking. So just for a few more moments, do nothing with it. Don't try to fix the mind, don't try to change it, don't try to alter any thought. Don't try to manufacture any sort of experience, just let what is be what is, and listen. Now, I'm sure for many of us in these last moments, we had some moments of complete thoughtlessness, a mind devoid of thought, a mind devoid of rumination, a body devoid of some agitation, a settling of some restlessness. Because it's always going in some direction. Now we wake up in the morning and we start reaching for things, we start going towards things, and our day continues on like this. And so this method of no method begins with stopping. Not to do, not to perform an action, but to settle the doing and just be. For me, the most effortless path to take to understand this is through listening, through deep listening. And that's not an aspect that relies on the ears. We listen with our whole body, every sensation that arises through the fingers, the palms, the soles of the feet. all of the sensations relating to the breath. And we listen without looking, whether that's with the eyes closed, the eyes open. Listening is a total experience. And by listening I mean presence. And presence is a total experience, your complete awareness. And if we have a moment of calmness in the mind, that should be enough for us to say, that is quite something there. What is that? Because in some way, much of our practices, much of the things that we do in our life are to sort of satisfy a craving so that we can have a sort of peace of mind, a quiet contentment, peace in our heart. And if we've just been on this call for just a little bit more than 10 minutes and we've already tasted a little bit of that, that should be enough to put a light bulb on and say, what is that? And is that really how simple the peace of mind can be recognized? Because it is recognized. It's not manufactured. So not being manufactured means it's not fabricated. It's not something that we need to create or do something to find. Sometimes we go on a long walk or do an asana class or play music or all sorts of things in order to find some peace of mind. But if we just look directly in this moment, we find that it's already there in some degree. Sometimes our attention is just caught up by other things that are on the surface. This attention being caught up is what we can call contraction. The open state of peace is forgotten and we are contracted into the content of the mind. We are contracted into the task, the circumstance, the situation. We are consumed. Being consumed, we are captivated. The attention is captivated. And our attention is always being captured by one thing or another. And so to sit back and rest back and let the attention rest into this listening, presence, awareness, the whole thing can relax. It's like we're pulling a rubber band really, really tightly. And rather than letting it go and letting it sling, we just let it come back to the center. And we regain all that elasticity. And that regaining of elasticity is it's a peaceful quality. But if we really look at this presence, we find that it's not in the tightening of the elastic band or the relaxing of the elastic band. It's in what recognizes it. And so recognition means recognizing what is already there, what is already present. If you look directly at the mind, the looking is not taken by the activity of the mind. Does that make sense? If you listen completely to this moment, your attention is not captive to anything. And when we listen completely and we are with this presence, not being present with something, but just being completely as presence, not listening to something, but completely absorbed in listening itself, completely aware, and this calm state of mind that is not perturbed by the currents, by the contractions, by the pulsations. If we have a brief moment of this being crystal clear, it is no different than the mind of a Buddha. It is the mind of awakening. And the ones who discover it or find it, it's usually by a long path of rigor and practice and discipline and renunciation and all of these sorts of things. And then one day they trip over and they stumble and they say, is that it? That thing that was there the whole time that I was looking everywhere else hoping to find? Is that really it? And sometimes if we're lucky, if we're really paying attention, and if we really understand how profound that is, it stops us in our tracks. And it stops us in our tracks and we stop seeking. We stop looking for it elsewhere because we found it. And that's a really different thing altogether. Because much of the time on quote-unquote spiritual paths, we are seekers. And for the majority of the time that we are seekers, we are not finders. And there's another side of the tracks where we are not seeking anymore, we're not looking, we're not restless. Seeking is a restlessness. And so what is it to relax that rubber band? What is it to relax the impulse and the craving to find something? There's a story from the East of a beggar who has he sleeps on, his pillow is a rock. And every night he sleeps on that rock and he wakes up and he begs all day looking for handouts. And he doesn't realize that the rock is actually a rare gem. It's like a meteorite and it's worth a lot of money. But he just thinks it's a rock that he uses as a pillow and he keeps begging, looking outside, hoping someone will give him something. He doesn't realize that he's already got a lot right under his head, right there. It's kind of like that. I like to say we're coal miners. We're coal miners looking for coal. We don't realize we're in a gold mine. One of the ways to describe how it can be that simple to point out the quality of presence and awareness is looking back at our youth. I was describing this a little bit the other day. When we are born into this world, there is no concept about the world. We just hear sound, and we don't call it sound. We just feel sensation, but we don't call it sensation. We feel emotion, but we don't call it emotion. There's just a full sensory display of things arising and falling and changing one moment into the next. As we get a little bit older, around the age of 2, we start to learn what our name is, the name that has been given to us. We start to learn that this is my body and not their body, that I have a name and they have a name, that I come from somewhere, that I like some things and I don't like other things. And at this moment that this process starts to come together of who I am and what I like and what my name is and where I'm located. I'm here and you're there. We start to create this sense of identity. And it's a beautiful sense of identity. But much of the spiritual path is marked by the detachment from this identity, or the breaking apart of this identity. And so if we go back to that point, what were we before that name? And what were we before all of those preferences and ideas were given to us? And if we go to that place, there's a silent innocence. And that silent innocence, it never left. We just identified and contracted with a different idea. And so when we see that contraction of identity and we relax it to rest back and listen and just become purely present and see that in that pure presence there's no past, there's no future. We see that that presence is synonymous with this present moment. There's no difference, there's no inside and there's no outside, it just permeates. As that presence permeates with no past and no future, no thought and no thinker of the thought, we go back to that silent place. And in that place, the world looks a little different. Because if I have a contraction that is based upon my preferences, those preferences will in some way, shape or form be in conflict with someone else's contraction and their preferences. And I will have to defend my sense of self and justify it and go against something in order to keep it. Which is all well and good. I'm just saying, what if we undid that contraction and became completely open to this moment as it is? And sometimes the mind, sometimes that sense of contraction, it says, well, Jaya, but what about the whole world of political affairs and wars and famine and all of this sort of stuff? This is largely because of that contraction, is it not? Of defending something, of making someone else wrong so we can be right. And if we are walking a path or studying the paths that lead to what is called awakening, could it be that simple that awakening is just awakening from the dream of a separate sense of self? Because if I see the world without a thought, with only presence, it's not going against me, it's not coming at me, it's one with the seeing. There's a harmony there. Yeah. And so when it comes to the traditions and the paths of awakening, we can sometimes think that it is quite a far-fetched ideal or a mysterious thing. Many of those masters, they say it is achievable and it's not so difficult and you can realize it here and now. Some say you can realize it in this lifetime with a lot of practice, and others say you can realize it here and now without anything. Because it's not other than what you are. It's not at a distance, it's not separate. And so could it be as ordinary and simple as just this moment of pure listening presence? So I could keep talking like this, but I think that's a good introduction. And I brought my Kabir book again, and I thought I would open it up and see what he has to say and see if it's relevant. I like going through all of the master poets there, their poetry, their hymns. This translation's by Robert Bly. And Kabir, I've just been falling back in love with these past months. If you don't know who Kabir is, he was an Indian mystic, born into a Muslim household. And so he was has a Sufi undertone and a Sufi sentiment about him. But at some point he found his teacher, who was a Vedic teacher, a Hindu teacher. And so in his book, in his writings that we have, collected writings from him, there are all these short poems. And sometimes they take a critical lens on just all of the spiritual fanaticism on both sides, on any side, in all of us. And he has a really wonderful way of doing that and pointing back to a non-dual thing in a kind of humorous way. So I like Kabir. So let's see. He says, my friend, hope for the guest while you are alive. Jump into experience while you are alive. Jump into experience while you are alive. Think and think and think while you are alive. What you call salvation belongs to the time before death. What you call salvation belongs to the time before death. He says, if you don't break your ropes while you are alive, do you think that ghosts will do it for you afterwards? If you don't break your ropes while you are alive, do you think ghosts will come and do it after? The idea that the soul will join with the ecstatic just because the body is rotten, that is all a fantasy. What is found right now is also found then. If you find nothing now, you will simply end up with an apartment in the city of death. What is found now is found then. If you find nothing now, you will simply end up with an apartment in the city of death. If you make love with the divine now, in the next life you will have the face of satisfied desire. So plunge into the truth, find out who the teacher is, and believe in that great sound. So, what is found now is found then. If you find nothing now, you will simply end up with an apartment in the city of death. It's kind of what we're talking about. If you don't find this presence here and now, if it doesn't smack you in the face with its peace, with its emptiness, with its lack of all of the things that we carry around with us, if you don't find that now, then we're just wallowing around in the city of death, looking for something elsewhere that will fill us up, that will fix us. If you don't break your ropes while you are alive, do you think that ghosts will come and do it after? It's an interesting pointing out that some of the traditions where we spend our time looking for salvation in the next life, he's saying that's all a fantasy. The only thing on offer here is what is right now. What do you find right now? Because if you find something right now, then you can die at peace when your time comes. But if we spend our time looking the other way, saying, when my time comes, I will pray for salvation. What were you doing that whole time? Where were you? So he says, if you find what is right now was also then. Meaning, what is now was also in the time of those great scriptures. What is now is also the same presence in the time of Christ. What is now is the same presence in the time of Buddha, in the same time of the sages who wrote the Vedas. Sometimes we go looking back in scriptures and we are uplifted with a kind of ancient memory, imagining how these old sages wrote down these beautiful things and came to these realizations, and then we talk about it. But where are they today? What is it today? What are the scriptures of today? Where are the Upanishads of today? Where are the sutras and the tantras? Why do we have to go looking back 500 years, 800 years, 2,000 years, 2,500, 3,000 years into history to find what is alive? Because if we keep looking back and if we keep looking to the place after our death, maybe we keep missing what is alive right here. So Kabir says, I laugh when I hear that the fish in the water is thirsty. I laugh when I hear that the fish in the water is thirsty. You don't grasp the fact that what is most alive of all is inside your own house. You don't grasp the fact that what is most alive of all is inside your very own house. And so you walk from one holy city to the next with a confused look on your face. Kabir will tell you the truth. Go wherever you like, to Calcutta or Tibet, If you can't find where your soul is hidden, for you the world will never become real. Kabir will tell you the truth. Go wherever you like, to Calcutta or Tibet. If you can't find where your soul is hidden, for you the world will never be real. It's perfect. Isn't that beautiful? I laugh when I hear that the fish in the water is thirsty. I laugh when I hear that the seeker is looking everywhere to find what they are. Because we don't grasp the fact that what is most alive of all is in our own house. It's not different than our very essence. How could it be another way, right? Could something more profound than your own essence, than your own source, be somewhere else? And so, not seeing this, you walk from one holy city to the next with a confused look on your face. Because we have this desire, many of us, I know, we want to go to these special places, we want to go on these pilgrimages. And it's that cliche thing that the destination was the journey. Or if we look more precisely, it's that the destination, the journey, which is the path, and then the one walking it, they're all the same thing in the end. The path doesn't actually go anywhere, and the destination is not the end, and they all turn back to the one walking, and it stops us dead in our tracks when we stop and listen. Do you hear the sound? Let me do another one. Let's try this. I don't know what sort of God you have been talking about. I don't know what sort of God you've been talking about. The caller calls in a loud voice to the Holy One at dusk. Why? Surely the Holy One is not deaf. He hears the delicate anklets that ring on the feet of tiny insects that walk. Go over your beads. Go over and over your beads. Paint weird designs on your forehead. Wear your hair long and matted and ostentatious. But when deep inside of you there is a loaded gun, how can you have God? So it's nice. He's talking about chanting and mantra and kirtan and preachers in other parts of the world, where they call and they calling in a loud voice to the Holy One at dusk, singing over and over, which is beautiful. I think he's into that, so he's not saying it's a bad thing, but he's like, you call over and over again. But surely the Holy One is not deaf. Why do you have to yell? Why are you yelling at God? Surely he's not deaf. Surely you don't have to say anything at all. Surely there's no name that you have to call, because it doesn't have a name at all. It's that which can't be named, right? Because any name that we give it takes us away from it. So we mustn't get lost in names. He says, the caller calls in a loud voice at the Holy One at night. Why? Surely the Holy One is not deaf. He hears the delicate anklets that ring on the feet of an insect as it walks. So he hears everything. He's always listening, because it is listening. It is the space of listening. And so he says to the spiritual, the sadhu, it looks like he's talking about a sadhu, or he's in India, so there are all sorts of people doing all sorts of practices and ascetic endeavors. So he says, go over and over your beads, your rosary, your mala. Go over and over your beads. Paint your designs on your forehead. Wear your hair long and matted and ostentatious. So he's like, the look of the renunciate, the look of the monk, But he says, when deep inside of you you have a loaded gun, how can you have God? And this is a kind of a conundrum, no? Because we wear the garb of the thing that we're interested in, that we practice. I have a visitor. Just one moment. You have to go see Mom, my love. You want to say hi?
I have 15 more minutes.
Come say hi.
Hi.
All right, go see Mom. I'm busy.
Who are you?
It's a good question. But we are reading this Kabir poem. He says, go over and over your beads, paint your designs in your forehead, grow your hair, look the look, walk the walk, look the part, speak the right words, read the right books, do all of the right practices. He's saying, do all of that. But when deep inside of you there is a loaded gun, how can you have God? How can you love God? When deep inside of you, you are adorning something that you believe somehow is separate from that. It's he brings out this kind of conundrum or a small paradox in the Bhakti tradition. Kabir was from the Bhakti tradition. So the Bhakti tradition, from Vedanta, the yoga of devotion, of submission, of devoting oneself to something, to sing, to recite mantra, to go over and over again, to purify one's mind and heart by merging with that thing over and over again. But implied with that, implied with chanting, implied with praying, is a separation, that God is somewhere else. And implied in that separation is the seeker that will one day find something. And implied in that seeking is attention. No? And until we relax this tension, we'll never find what we are seeking. And so in the Bhakti path, there are many different schools of philosophy. There are dualistic schools and non-dualistic schools, and he's coming more from a non-dualistic school. He's saying that if you keep praying to that, you'll just be that praying to that, until you realize that the prayer, the one praying and the one prayed to, it's all the same thing. No? It's like saying, how far can you go to get away from the universe? You can't go very far. Or where do you end and the universe begins? It's to say this simple thing that if we conceive the totality of the thing, it's all itself and no more. You can't add to it, or you can't subtract to it. And somehow in the middle of it, we are here looking at it, but we can't look at it completely because in a sense we are it. And so the one looking has to collapse into the looker, or the one listening has to collapse into the listening. This is where it gets a little funny, but it makes perfect sense at some level. So the Bhakti tradition he's criticizing is the one that keeps us in a dualistic opposition, looking for something that will fulfill us. But he's saying, he's kind of giving us some breadcrumbs to follow, to say that if we overcome the identity that spiritualizes itself, and we look a little bit closer, we see that the real bhakti path, the real devotion, the real prayer, it is a silent realization and celebration that it's all here, that nothing's over there, that what is now, and what is now has always been. So I think that's what he's trying to encourage us to find. So I could keep reading Kabir all night, but I'd love to see who's on here, and if anyone wants to say anything.
Can I ask a very particular question about that passage you just read, because of the poetry and the line about when there's a loaded gun inside of you? That phrase really struck me, and like the tone of it was very arresting and almost confusing to me. And just in the context of what you're speaking about, I'm curious what you make of that phrase, because it's like a violent metaphor, right? Like it's like when you're trying to be in this place of devotion and presence, and you're calling out to God, but deep inside of you there's this loaded gun, like there's this like potential for violence. Like I don't think that's what he's trying to say, but that's what I made of that metaphor. So I'm curious, maybe I'm just being too particular about it.
Yeah, I want to find the same poem in the Tagore translations. It's definitely a literary device that Robert Bly is using. I don't think Kabir said that at all. So he's criticizing these spiritual aspirants who are collecting all the right things, doing all the right things. I think what he's referring to as the loaded gun is the adoption of all of these things as a type of spiritual materialism, that now they're identified with all these things, the spiritual egotism. So when deep inside of you there's a loaded gun, how can you have God? So I think he's talking about this tendency towards identifying with the spiritualization of the identity. And the loaded gun is these tendencies are latent tendencies that were already there, and they become hidden and shrouded and dressed in a different way. And the loaded gun, he begins the poem by saying, I don't know what sort of God we have been talking about. So he's saying, I don't know what God you're talking about. I don't know what God you're referring to. So he's saying for him, God is something very different. He's saying for him, it's not all of that. And it's not doing that to get that. So he's found something, that he can't outright say, but in order to say it, he has to negate the other things, Like I said, God can't be named, because anytime we give it a name, we have missed it entirely, because it is not a concept that can be named. Anytime we get into reason, rationality, and language, we have reduced the immeasurable, immensity, the great mystery, and the great ineffable unknown into an idea, into a name. But I just have to use all those words just to show you that all those words can't even summarize a name. I like this thought that in some traditions, the name of God is so sacred that it can't be said. I think it can't be said because they're pointing at precisely this. You can't actually name the unknown. It is so ineffable. So he says, I don't know which God we're talking about. I don't know which God you're talking about. He's like, you're doing all of this. For what? To get where? And he also criticizes utilizing these things for status. I really love Kabir because he rejected a lot of that. He didn't become a monk or a renunciant. He didn't take the title of a tradition or anything like this. He was just a simple householder. He rejected it all and went and got married, had children, and he was a weaver, and he would do his work, and then he would go home, write some poetry, and he's relatively unknown. He's just an ordinary guy who, he had something really, he had this great jewel, and he looked around him and he was in this landscape of deep spiritual ideals, and he was like, I don't understand what you're doing, because I don't think that's it. And no, he wasn't like undercutting it so well, but he was like, is that it? What could it be this? Could it be that simple? And so I think that loaded gun, it is just pointing to these latent tendencies of the identity in the individual that hasn't fully grasped the depth of the unfathomable, of the mystery, of the unknown, and of the non-dual aspect of this. It's a tricky territory, because on one side, many people need, and I want to give the clause here, many people, we need a practice, we need a study, we need a teacher, we need a path, so that we know which direction to go in. And some who have gone off the deep end or realized something really deep, they stop going in a certain direction, not because they're lost and not because they've lost momentum, but because they've stopped looking for that thing to fulfill them. And when you stop looking for the thing to fulfill you, it's like you stop being restless. And you stop being restless, you stop needing to be fulfilled by certain things. It's like, what calls somebody to a spiritual path, to find something? Usually it's a restlessness, usually it's a shake-up. Most people that I meet who are deeply on a spiritual path, they haven't come there because it's all been sweet and easy and sugar-coated and nice and loving. They've come there from, the deep, from the deep and the dark and the wildly chaotic and transformative. And so then we kind of look for more of that, or we've had a taste, a glimpse of it, and we say, I know there's something here. Or we've had a big gulp of it, and we say, well, now I have no doubt, but I need to do something because this other aspect, these other tendencies are always out of control. I just keep following my mind and my thoughts, and it gets me in trouble. Or the world is in a hopeless state. I don't know what to do with it. And so it's this question, where to find peace in the midst of it all. And here I think the criticism is that we continually look outward for it. And the more we look outward for something like our happiness or our peace, if we find a little bit of it, then we need to keep going fishing to get more fish. We need to keep going fishing to get more fish. We need to go back out. And it's an endless game, and it doesn't end. And then it's filled with restlessness. It's filled with that subtle anxiety. And it's more of the same thing. It's like the carrot dangling in front of us. In the path of recognition, it's to recognize what is here when you haven't fixed or fidgeted or manufactured anything. If you just take a moment to come back to where you began, you breathe. And you just listen. Listen without condition. Listen without concept. When we do that, we come close to this thing which is unknown and on one hand cannot be known because it can't be made into an object, it can't be made into a piece of knowledge. And that's what I like to call knowing without knowledge, because the presence there is the knower, but there's nothing to know other than itself. So it's only when we get to this point where we cannot objectify the thing that the subject and the object fall away, and all we're left with is this one slate. So just back to your question, Sam, the loaded gun, I think, is that tendency within each of us that leads us to have doubt about that. And it leads us to look in other ways and try to manufacture it in other ways, or try to have an external pretense for it in another way. Like, look, I'm doing it. You know, it's like when we show off our spiritual practice in some way, like it becomes performative. And then what are we doing? And him, with his example being quite an ordinary person in the world, and not building himself up in many ways, he kind of is critiquing that performative aspect. And he's saying there's a quiet, he says here that it's the breath inside of your breath. So he keeps coming back to this closeness. So the loaded gun could go in many directions. Tell me your idea on the loaded gun.
You got it. That was great. Hit the nail on the head.
All right. Yeah, so the loaded gun, you could say it's a violent imagery, but it's just it's saying that there is something there that is on the edge and capable of getting us in trouble. And we all have that, no? You look in your belly, in that sensation there, you know, or in the mind, that edge, the loaded gun, the what if, the thing that spins around. And if it spins in the wrong direction, we could be thrown out there. If we recognize this kind of symbol of a wound trigger inside of us, you know, it's our reactivity. You know, if our trigger is pulled, we react, right? And so we all have wound trigger, the winding. It's like that rubber band being tightened. When we seek, we are in tension. Until we relax this tension, we won't find what we are seeking. And so this trigger that's pulled is this kind of tension. And we all have this tension. It comes in all sorts of moments of life, and it pulls us, and then it leads us to look in a certain way. It leads us to believe a certain thing. It leads us to judge a certain thing. It leads us to need a certain thing, to want a certain thing, to go to a certain thing. And he's saying, if you just take your hand off that trigger, Hafez, he says, what is the difference between you and someone who knows God? I think this is it. I might paraphrase it a little bit. What is the difference between you and someone who knows God? He says, my dear, the one who knows God has put down the cruel knife that they so often use upon themselves and others. They have put down the cruel knife that they so often use upon themselves and others. We can look at this many ways, but the way that we've been talking tonight, when we come to this listening presence, even just for a moment, even just for a glimpse, and the past and future disappear, and the thoughts in the mind dissolve like smoke into the sky. And even if you just glimpse this just for a fraction of a second, just for a moment, what a moment that could be, to meet the moment in its presence as the present moment, as the presence of the present moment. And so it's to take a moment to consider your entire life and the entirety of human existence and conception, and the entirety of the world's conception and all of the life there, and keep going out like this for all of the universal forces, and to see that it is the same moment in all. We get confused when we get lost in measurement to say this is space and this is time. When we go to the immeasurable, now we are not looking at somebody measuring something. The immeasurable is talking about timelessness. The timelessness is talking about a timeless silence, the very space, the very being, presence, and that is. That was before it all, that will be after it all, and that in between is no different than it. And all of our life is not other than that. It's the thing I say all the time, that the wave is not other than the sea. He says, I laugh when the fish in the water is thirsty. And so here I'm asking to recognize this presence and then zoom out so far that you don't see a difference in this presence from before everything and after everything. And then we come here and we have the entire aspect of our life and our idea and everything that we love and everything that we like and everything that we don't like. And from that presence we say, it's a beautiful story that I've co-created, written in a beautiful book. But from this presence, I close the book and it doesn't change the presence. From this presence, I close the book and it doesn't change this presence. And so it doesn't mean the book goes away. I still carry the book around. I still carry the qualities and the essence of being me. But now I'm not attached to the book. Not attached to the book in a way that I take it personally. Being non-attached to the book in a way that I may take it personally, I act less skillfully in the way that I react to it, which means the finger on the trigger has relaxed, which means the tightening of the tension has softened, and which means that cruel knife that we so often use upon ourselves and the world, it's been dropped. But it starts with that inward recognition, right? And again, recognition, to recognize, not to create, not to find something new. To recognize what is there before it all. And then you smile. A little bit. Or you laugh. Or you tremble in terror. So we've been on here for about an hour. I'm going to leave it at about this today. I'm grateful to have many of you join us tonight, and turns out there was some nice things to talk about. Let's open Kabir one more time. Because why not? All right. This one says, "There is nothing but water in the holy pools. There is nothing but water in the holy pools. I know because I've been swimming inside of them. All of the gods sculpted of wood or ivory, they can't say a word to you. All of the gods sculpted of wood or ivory cannot say a word. I know because I've been crying out to them. The sacred books of the East, they're nothing but words. I looked through all of their covers. One day I looked sideways. But what Kabir talks about is only what he has lived through. If you have not lived through something, then it is not true." So he says, in the holy pools is only water, and I know this because I've swam in them, because I've fallen in them, because I've become wet, I've become soaked. And all of the gods sculpted of wood or ivory, they don't say anything, because I've been crying out to them all of the time, and I know that they didn't respond. The sacred books of the East are nothing but words. I looked through all of their covers. I know, it's just words in there. I didn't find anything. I looked through all of the sacred scriptures. I didn't find anything but words. That's true. He's saying something more as well. He's saying that we get attached to the words. No, we get attached to the ideas rather than where the ideas are pointing. It's the Zen, and I think it comes from the Buddha originally, the pointing of the finger to the moon. No, I think we all know this. Somebody's looking for the light of the moon as a symbol for enlightenment, and the master says, "There it is. That's the moon." And the seeker looks at the finger and says, "Wow, there it is," and they start worshipping the hand and the finger. And he says the scriptures, there's nothing but words in there. He's saying, do not worship the finger. Look to where they're pointing. Look to where the words take you. In order to do that, we have to do what we did in the beginning. We have to listen and find this presence. You know, where this comes from, and in Vedanta, also in Buddhism, there are many different... one of the main aspects, it says it doesn't begin without listening. And listening is hearing, and once we have heard, then we can put it into practice. Then we can discover its understanding, or we can realize what it means. But we have to really hear the thing. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're trying to really hear. We're trying to really hear this playing. And we start with listening, and then we really listen to the presence, and we're like, oh, that's what the books were talking about. Anyway, so he says, what Kabir talks of is only what he has lived through. If you have not lived through something, it is not true. And so many of these things become true for us only through direct experience. And the direct experience is by turning directly towards what you are. The essential awareness and the essential presence. That's the fire that burns, the fire of love that melts away all of the sins and all of the worries and all of the accumulations of confusions. But when you go back and back and back to that awareness, it does burn all those things. There's a Rinpoche, he says, if you pause throughout your day and you spend a moment in this non-dual presence, it can burn up many seeds of karma accrued over lifetimes. And so Kabir says, he only talks of what he has lived through. And that's all I hope to do in these calls and in these things. I don't like to explain information. I don't like to disseminate on knowledge, because the only thing that's true for me is what what I know firsthand, what I've experienced. And that's really the only thing that we can all do. And so if he says, if you have not lived through something, it is not true. So if you're seeking truth, you have to live through it. How do you live through it? By becoming so honest with everything that you look at. You know? And so the reminder there is to always speak and share, or feel and look and listen and learn inside and outside from this place of knowing, you know, from what we know. And that's a good reminder. I think, you know, if we get stuck on just saying, oh, such and such said this book says that, what do we know? Do we really know anything about that? Is that true? What do you know? What have you put through the sieve? What have you put through the fire and brought out the other side that you know, this is what I know? And if we do that, this is the topic of another call. If we do that, we find that the thing that we most intimately know, it's not something that can be known. And then we're back to where we began. Because if we try to accumulate it, knowledge, and read all of the books to find it, at the end of the day, all we have is knowledge. You know, the Vedas, they say, you've accumulated all of this knowledge, but have you learned that by which all else is known? So what is the light of this awareness? What is the light of this knowing that doesn't need knowledge to know itself, that can't be found in a book? Kabir says he can only speak from his direct experience. He says if you speak anywhere other than your direct experience, you don't know. It's not true. I think it's an interesting thing to sit with. Interesting. Very beautiful. Thank you for letting me share Kabir with you tonight, or today. I hope you enjoy him, and perhaps we will do some more readings like this as the months go on. Thank you, dear Jaya, for being part of my direct experience. You are true. Thank you, Jaya. Bring a light to our candles. Yes. All right. So my friends, I'm really happy. May you have peace in your mind and peace in your heart. I've had the great fortune this past 2 weeks to not be online. I'm not online that much anyway, but I know that a lot's going on out in the world, and I know that it can be very consuming. And if we don't consume it, we're not consumed by it. That's just a different path to take as well. Maybe it's an invitation to put down the things that you can put down, and see if you really need to know all about the things that are happening in the world. And one of my favorite lines, you know, it's from an old Simon and Garfunkel song. He says, I've gotten all the news I need today from the weather report. I've gotten all the news I need from the weather report. You know what I mean? Perhaps that could be helpful to you. Perhaps it could help you sleep at night better. Perhaps you could choose the days when you check it, and choose the days when you go out and get the news from a lovely tree, or a lovely flower, or a lovely river. Because they've got news. They've got serious news. Groundbreaking news. All right, my friends, if you want to leave, you can leave. I'm going to stay around for a moment, just in case anyone wants to say hello and catch up. So good night.
Hi, Jaya. This is Sierra.
Hi.
I just wanted to say next week marks 1 year since I first visited Casa Floresta, and
Yeah.
it's been an amazing year, and I'm a completely different person, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Sierra, so lovely to hear your voice. I really love hearing that. No, so you're in a good place.
I am. I found the clarity and the joy that I was looking for, and I'm like so much happier and I'm at peace. And I just wanted to say it was, because of you and Haley and at Forest Path, and it's not just the in-person experience, but everything you've done after with like the online courses and your YouTube videos and like your beautiful music on SoundCloud. And I'm just so appreciative for it. And seeing you like at these monthly calls, it's been really wonderful to feel like there's still love, and it's there's still a lot left to learn. And I'm just so grateful, and I just wanted to
Yeah.
say thank you
Oh,
so
thank you so
much.
much. It's so beautiful. But back to this word recognition, no? It's he says if I don't realize that it's true, it's not true, no? And so something in you recognizes something, some form of clarity. Something in you woke up, and that's a beautiful thing. So point it back to yourself, and you say you found clarity. No, the clarities of the mind, the clarities of the body. And if that's what we were really looking for, then make that something really important. No? Make that the peace something that is really worthy in your life, and water it like a beautiful garden, because that's what you're doing, and that's why you're on this call. Otherwise, if you didn't hear, if you weren't listening, you would have just gone home and said that was a nice trip, which some people do. So I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you so much.
Hi as well. Hi, AJ.
Hi, I just wanted to say how grateful I am for you and just what a beautiful kind of just